Good evening, everybody. So tonight, as we head into the week of the election, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we as Christians should carry ourselves. Not how we should vote. For one, I can't talk about that because nonprofits can't and should not talk about that. But two, because I want to talk about how, while our faith should kind of govern how we vote, not in the way I think that some of us think. So tonight I want to go into a scripture that some of us have probably heard preached on a million times, or at least glanced over. It's the concept of giving unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And I want to cover a little bit more than just that part of the passage. I want to go into what leads up to that passage as well. So I'm going to start out with Matthew 22:15 and read from there. Then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. They sent their disciples to him, along with the Herodians. "Teacher," they said, "we know that you are a man of integrity, and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others, because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not?" But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, "You hypocrites! Why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax." They brought him a denarius, and he asked them, "Whose image is this, and whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. Then he said to them, "So give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." When they heard this, they were amazed, so they left him and went away. So, first I want to talk about the beginning of this passage. This is a section, a decent-sized section. We usually cover the last half of that passage I read, though. Not the part where the Pharisees come up to Jesus, or the disciples of the Pharisees. Pharisees in training, you would say. And they came up to him and said, "We know that you're a man of integrity, and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are." So even the Pharisees, or the disciples of the Pharisees, recognize that Jesus is a man of truth. That Jesus sets himself apart. He follows God, he follows Scripture, he doesn't listen to no man when it comes to his faith, right? Even the wicked recognize truth. Now, to some extent, they're probably placating him a little bit. They're talking to him amidst him talking to followers or people that are curious about him. And so they're, "Yeah, Jesus, we know you're a man of truth." They're trying to sweet talk him as if you could sweet talk Jesus. He can see right through that. But they say, "We know you're a man of integrity. We know that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others." Nobody. No political party, no Pharisaical religious ruling class, no Jewish ruling class, kind of the same as the Pharisees, a little different. He's not swayed by anybody. He carries his own relationship with God and his knowledge of Scripture above any of those relationships. And so they ask for his opinion. And they're trying to trap him. They're trying to get him to say something that would put a target on his back as a traitor to the Roman state. They're trying to get the Romans to come after him, trying to get him in trouble, because by this point he has a decent-sized following, and they know that. And if Jesus were to say anything against the Romans, they would immediately come down hard on him. He would be snuffed out quicker than you know what. And so they're trying to catch him in something wrong. And they're doing this throughout Scripture. They just get more and more intense as time goes on. This one's blatantly obvious that they're trying to do it with. But they're trying to catch him in some sort of mistruth, or in some sort of thing against the state. They know the rules. But Jesus says something that they don't expect him to say. They expect him to say something like, follow your God above any Roman law, or that we shouldn't pay taxes to Caesar because we should only give money to the temple, something along those lines. They aren't expecting Jesus to say what he says at all. They haven't even conceived that this might be a possibility. So Jesus said, he asked them to see a coin, and on it is Caesar's face. Our money's boring. We've got dead people on our money. They have living people, though. They have, like, the current Caesar. His face is right there on that denarius, probably. And so they bring him this denarius, and he says, whose face is on this? And while many of them probably have never seen Caesar in person, they would have been governed by local authorities. They all know who that is. They know that's Caesar. They know that that is the head honcho, right, of the Roman ruling class. And so they bring him this coin. And he says, they say it's Caesar's. And he says, so give back to Caesar what's Caesar's. As simple as that. He put his face on it. Clearly it's his. It's not ours. It's like I licked it. It's mine. Bam. Simple as that. But there's a deeper message here. It's not just about us paying taxes. Our dead president is on this, therefore we should give it back to where the dead presidents came from. No. It's not just about money. It's also about the whole concept of being governed. It's about the concept of when we go to vote, when we go to talk about politics, religion and politics aren't synonymous, and they shouldn't be. That's a theocracy. Most people know that those they don't really work well. Because most people don't like to have their morals governed by politics. They'd much rather interpret morals through their individual study of Scripture, through their relationship with Christ. And that's what we should be doing. We should be going to Scripture daily and saying, okay, this is how I have been told to live my life. If, for any chance, we are telling anybody else how to live their life, it should be somebody that we've built that accountability relationship with. It should be somebody in our church, somebody in a Bible study group. It should be somebody that we've built that relationship with so that we can hold them accountable, right? So when it comes to governing, we're set apart. They're separate. So that kind of brings me to actually what started this whole train of thought. This week I shared a quote. It's actually, I think off of, I think it's a Twitter, called The Confessing Millennial. And I don't follow this person, but somebody else reposted it, and this resonated with me. So I reposted this. And so if you follow me, you've probably already seen this, but this is where this train of thought kind of started. And the quote says, biblical Christianity will seem centrist at times because it will critique the ideologies of both the left and the right. But it's not politically centrist. It's politically transcendent. It's a category by itself. It's the ethics of a kingdom that's not of this world. And that's so true because most of us can look at both these parties and say there's something here that's moral, there's something here that's moral, or some of us that really align ourselves with one party can say this other party is completely of Satan. Like, we can probably all look at these two major parties that are part of our country here in America and say one is more moral than the other. Or we can choose to align ourselves as centrist and say, I don't really like them both. They're both crazy. But what's important is that Jesus wouldn't have run for president. That would have been the expectation of the Jews upon the Messiah. The Jews expected the Messiah to come and set up an earthly kingdom, in the sense of, like, become an earthly king, and to rule them and take over the Romans and make it an earthly kingdom. But Jesus wouldn't have run for president of our country or of any others. He wouldn't have become president of the world, per se. He chose to set up a kingdom within our hearts. a kingdom that transcends any earthly government. And we need to remember that as we go into this next week. No matter who wins this political craziness, no matter who wins, Jesus wouldn't have run for president. And Jesus doesn't align himself with the right or the left or the libertarians or the Green Party or any party whatsoever. He transcends above all of that. So we need to remember to be at a little bit of peace in that. We may see things that we don't agree with in either party, and so we should choose to vote that way. We should choose to vote where we feel led, and vote where we think God would have us vote. Keep your ears open to that. Keep your ears open to it possibly being a different answer than you expect it to be. I think that's hard to do sometimes. Sometimes we're like, God would always align himself with this party, and no. Make sure to keep your ears open to what God would have you do. If you haven't voted yet, because I know a bunch of us are Oregonians, and so we've already voted via our fancy schmancy vote by mail. If you haven't voted yet, shameless plug, go drop it in a ballot box, because it's too late to mail it. But go do it, come on. I'm talking to myself too, because I need to do it. It's important, right? And so as I leave you with this, as we go into this next week, I want to leave you with a prayer. It's one of the few prayers that is like a liturgical prayer that's actually written out. It's a repetitive thing. I don't usually do those because repetition ain't my thing. My brain's like, been there, done that, we've covered that. But in this case, this is one that helps bring me peace, helps remind me that this world is not my home. And so this is the Serenity Prayer. Some of you may have heard this one before. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Super simple, but man, important. Important as we go through a difficult time, a difficult year, and important that we know this ain't our home. All I know is I'm not home yet. This isn't where I belong. So with that, I'm going to sign off. I hope to see you guys this Saturday at Trunk and Treat. Our socially distanced Trunk and Treat, super safe. And bring your kids, bring your family. Let's have a fun time. So I'll see you guys later.